Good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's video, I'll be focusing on more severe weather with damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes possible, especially across the southeast in the coming days, and expanding heat with the heat wave taking over much of the lower 48 in the United States into next week. And is something brewing in the tropics? We're still watching an area of interest in the North Atlantic. We'll get to those details later on in today's video. But looking here at the visible satellite imagery as of this morning, we have a robust complex of showers and storms moving across the southern plains into the Arklatex this morning, bringing more damaging winds, large hail, and heavy rainfall to these areas as of this morning. But going back to yesterday, very busy day with severe weather across the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and even the Southeast as well. We had 305 wind reports, 65 hail reports, with 12 of those being 2-inch in diameter or larger, and 370 severe weather reports from yesterday. So it was a very busy day across the United States here. We had lots of severe weather reports across Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Western New York, and even down here from Tennessee into Georgia and South Carolina as well from your Thursday, July 20th timeframe. But moving forward, the surface analysis today has the cold front bringing it further south across portions of the southeast. That's where all the instability and moisture will be for storm activity that could turn severe later on today, but into the weekend, we have a stationary boundary setting up from East Texas all the way across here to southern Georgia and into South Carolina near the Gulf Coast. That will be bringing repeated rounds of showers and storms this weekend on Saturday into Sunday across these areas. So looking at today's severe weather outlook, we have a couple areas we're watching for severe storms. We have a small slight risk in the yellow across northeastern portions of New Mexico with a marginal risk extending northward across the Front Range into the high plains. We could be seeing some isolated to widely scattered severe storms here today. The most concentrated severe weather today will be from Little Rock down through Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and into portions of the Savannah, Georgia region here. That's where we have that slight risk extending from Arkansas all the way to portions of coastal Georgia and South Carolina. And we have a slight risk up here into portions of the I-95 corridor, into western and central Massachusetts, down into Connecticut, eastern New York. We're watching for some severe weather today as well. Going forward to Saturday, a couple areas we're watching for severe storms near the Gulf Coast and up into the Midwestern regions. Not that big of a deal. I think damaging winds and large hail will be the main mode of severe weather, but I suppose an isolated tornado will be possible. And then look at this on Sunday, July 23rd, the severe storm outlook. Yeah, you don't see really any colors besides light green. This is the first time in a while we have seen this here. So this is a good news to quiet down a little bit of the severe weather later on this weekend. But looking at the total rainfall accumulation today through early next week on Monday morning, July 24th, it does look like the heaviest rainfall will be concentrated across the southeast and into the Gulf Coast states here from portions of Arkansas southward through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia here. That's where we could be seeing widespread 1 to 2 inch rainfall amounts there, but also some not so much needed rainfall across the Northeast with more heavy rain with 1 to 2 inches of rain here across eastern New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, down through portions of the Delmarva as we go through this weekend. So looking here at the weather pattern with the temperatures this today into the weekend, it does look hot, obviously, across the desert southwest as the northern periphery of the ridge starts to flex its muscles across portions of the central plains. And then as we go into this weekend, the ridge axis will be well off to the west. So it's going to be hot across the west. It's going to be hot across the southern plains and the desert southwest. That's a given as we go into this weekend. A little bit of a more comfortable, cooler pattern for now across the northeastern United States into the Great Lakes, but this will change as we go into next week. But for right now, again, enjoy the comfortable weather while you have it across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast with 70s and 80s here prevailing this afternoon. But it is a different story. We're back to 115 in Phoenix. We're back to 120 in Death Valley here, 102 in Dallas-Fort Worth, 100 in Abilene, 100 here as well into Midland, Texas this afternoon. Into Saturday, we start to slowly heat the temperatures up across the Great Plains and the Midwest as the northern periphery of that ridge starts to flex its muscles here further to the north, so more 90s taking over the Great Plains on Saturday, and then as we go into Sunday, we have more of the mid 90s taking over from the Dakotas, Montana, all the way down to Texas. And you guessed it again, more triple-digit heat across portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Waco, Abilene, all the way west into the desert Southwest on Sunday. As we go into early next week, though, that ridge will begin to take over much of the United States. So we're going to be sharing the wealth with the heat as we go into early next week here towards the Mississippi Valley. Here are your temperatures, and it's going to get hot, folks. Again, enjoy the cooler, more comfortable weather while you have it in the Midwest. We're up to 94 in Minneapolis, St. Paul here early next week. We're up to near 90 in Chicago early next week as well. 94 in St. Louis, 94 in Little Rock, 92 there into Nashville. So it will be heating up early next week, but watch it really take over much of the United States here, all the way up to the international border later next week. We're talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday time frame here. And yeah, look at the heat here. Very uncomfortable. We're pushing well into the 90s, all the way up into Green Bay, Milwaukee, Chicago, Des Moines, Iowa. Look at that, 100 degrees in Des Moines, 100 there into Omaha. And yeah, we could be getting very close to the triple-digit point, even up into the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul as well. So it's going to be getting hot across the lower 48. That is for sure as we go deeper into next week, the dog days of summer. And it looks like it has some staying power as we go into early August. This goes through August 3rd, and it looks like above average temperatures are likely, especially across portions of the Missouri Valley on southbound toward the Gulf Coast and into the southeast from the Climate Prediction Center. So it will remain hot for the foreseeable future. Well, what about the precipitation chances? Well, they're going to be shut off across portions of the deep south into the southern plains underneath the influence of that ridge. We're just not going to see a lot of rain. It's just not going to happen. But over the top here, we do have a little bit of a weakness potentially late July into early August over the top as the monsoonal moisture tries to take over the Four Corners region and then lift up and over that ridge axis across the northern plains into the Dakotas, Wyoming, eastern Montana, and then east-southeast over the ridge on the northeastern periphery across the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, and into the northeast as we go through that July 28th through the August 3rd time frame. But what does this mean a little bit further? So the upper level jet stream during that next week time frame, you can see how it's a little stronger with the yellows and greens up here into southwestern portions of Canada and into the Pacific Northwest and then up here into the southern Canadian provinces. That's where the active storm track and the more significant rains will likely be next week. Could it rain across the northern plains and the upper Midwest at times next week? Yeah, it's definitely possible as the northern periphery of that ridge is there, but the heaviest rains will be across the southern Canadian provinces from British Columbia to Manitoba. Then as we go into early August, we start to shift that a little further south as the northern and northeastern periphery of the heat wave starts to break down slowly but surely. It's going to be hot, no question about that, across the southern United States into early August. That is a given, but the northern periphery from the Dakotas into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes, and even more or less the northeast, unfortunately, will be seeing more significant rains and clusters of showers and storms into early August. Some of these could be producing heavy rain and rounds of severe weather coming back as well, so we'll have to watch that. So for my area to watch for severe weather potential, late July, this is the last full week into July and the first full week into early August. This area highlighted in yellow will be the area to watch for severe weather and heavy rainfall as we go through that time frame. So if you live anywhere in this yellow shaded color, watch out for clusters of showers and storms that last full week into July and the first full week into August. We could be seeing rounds of severe weather, including damaging winds, large hail, and and possibly some isolated tornadoes, as well as some more very heavy rain and flash flooding potential as we go into that time frame. Looking here at the tropical weather update, the MDR region is starting to light up here. The National Hurricane Center has increased the odds to a 40% chance of something developing just to the east of the Lesser Antilles over the next 7 days. And looking at that wave here in the North Atlantic Ocean using the visible satellite imagery here this morning, you can see very compact tropical wave down here well to the east of any source of land. So we're not seeing anything happening as of now. This is a wait and see game. Looking at the European model here today, you can see that wave, a 1012 millibar low here well to the east here of South America and the Lesser Antilles. But by the time we get into late this weekend and more or less into early next week, we start to see lowering of the pressures at least to a 1015 or so millibar low across the eastern portions of the Caribbean, potentially in the western MDR region. This will be something to watch as we go into early next week, according to the European model. Now, looking at the GFS model, this is the American model, implies the same thing. The low pressure here starting to lower across portions of the MDR, the main development region today, and then pushes it westbound, but not as fast into early next week. So it's a little bit further east here of a solution than the European model, but still implies the same thing, possibly a tropical depression as we go in towards early next week. And looking at the EPS ensemble members, it clusters all of the low pressure tracks up well to the east here of the Lesser Antilles this weekend. So there's nothing to worry about in the Caribbean this weekend. But as we go into early next week, the EPS ensemble members kind of scatter them towards the Lesser Antilles. So Turks and Caicos, these areas over here, Puerto Rico, we may have to keep an eye on this as we get into that Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday time frame into the early and middle portion of next week. Then what happens from there? There's two different model camps that are starting to show where this could go. It could go either westward with the majority of the ensemble members into the Western Caribbean, which is definitely troublesome with the warm waters out here, or a couple of them take them to the north here of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico into the Western Atlantic and over toward the Bahamas. It still will be troublesome no matter what as well, depending on what happens later next week. So overall, looking at the sea surface temperatures here, this is using degrees Celsius currently. Anywhere you see 26 degrees Celsius or higher, that's 80 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. And look at the Western Caribbean, folks. I mean, if this system moves into the Western Caribbean, it has a favorable thermodynamic environment to work with here. It's just the kinematics here. Will it have a lot of wind shear to rip it apart, or will it have no wind shear? That is the question here as we go further in towards next week. We'll be dissecting that each and every day. But looking here at the Western Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf, it is a fire hose of heat across this region. There is no doubt about it. If this system develops and moves into the Caribbean, and especially into the Western Caribbean, where we see 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius temperatures here, there's no telling what could happen. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. Don't panic. It's a wait and see for now, but something to keep an eye on if you live into the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, as we move through this weekend and into the middle portion of next week. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that for you guys as well. But if you like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, including southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. We're almost to 33,000 subscribers. I appreciate all the new subscribers, all the old subscribers, and the supporters on this channel. It's also important to press the like button, the thumbs up button down below the video. I do appreciate that very much so. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for additional weather forecast updates, the link is down below the description of the video. Follow me on Twitter at hweather420. I do post on that platform fairly frequently as well. Well, have a great rest of your Friday, everybody. A great weekend, and I will see you all in the next video.